Thanks for being a part of our meeting this evening. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Andy Selhertz.
Here.
Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Mary Bellbeer.
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Here.
Sue Grodick.
Here.
Ron Van Kirk.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Here.
Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for an opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to gather tonight as a city council and members of the administration as well as residents of our city. We thank you for the privilege it is to live in Brooklyn and to be able to be a part of this meeting tonight. Lord, I pray that you'll please be with our community. Please keep us safe. Lord, we thank you for the wonderful safety forces that you've given to us, and we pray that you'll please continue to put a hedge of protection around their lives. Father, bless our meeting tonight as we deal with the business of the city, help to be productive. And Lord, we pray that you'll be glorified with all that's said and done. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. The first item on the agenda this evening is our minutes that we need to be approved from our last meeting dated February 24th, 2020. Any comments or questions? Make a motion to approve.
To approve, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
At this time, we'll have the public session. If anyone in the audience is in the say for the good and well for the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer.
Earl Bloom, 4720 Forest Edge Drive. I'm here again to remind everyone to support issue 25 at this coming Tuesday's primary election. This is a renewal levy for our school and our children. This levy is no new taxes, is not a tax increase, and does not raise our taxes. Our children are depending on us to provide them not only a very good academic education, but also the opportunity to participate in technology, sports, music, performing arts, and social activities. This levy will provide the necessary funding to maintain personnel, vital services, and operations, and continue these critical educational opportunities. Let's make our children proud of us and support the passing of this levy on Tuesday, March 17th. Vote for issue 25. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom.
Good evening, John Wagner, 4825 Bentwood Drive, Brooklyn, Ohio. Two things tonight. Let me give you a quick update on the census, and then May came up with a suggestion for me tonight. Moving along very well. We've now hired over 700 people out of the 2,000 that we need to hire on the first wave of hiring, so that's going very well. May came up with a great point tonight. Over the last 15 months that I've been doing this, I've been approached by a number of seniors, particularly, who have handed me paperwork that looks very much like a government notification, survey, census, whatever you want to call it, only to find out it's a spam or whatever you want to call it. And looking through it, it looks very official, has nice seals on it, and to any population of any age, it would be confusing. And us seasoned people have a little bit more of an opportunity to be confused. That comes naturally, right? So tonight, Meg asked me about a couple of things she saw on the internet. Absolutely, we're seeing political people now getting involved and sending out, I think, very possibly disinformation. I didn't read everything that she saw, but we just need to be aware that there are people taking advantage for one reason or another, whether it be financial, political, or whatever, to put out literature that looks very much like an official government information. So we just all need to be careful. We need to see it. If somebody's got some questions about it, I'm very willing to go and look at it and help them decide whether or not it's something that they really need to take a hard look at. Ongoing, we have surveys through the Department of Commerce, has surveys all year long through the whole 10-year process. Those are much more involved questionnaires. The actual census this time is going to be 9 questions. It's coming out towards the middle to the end of the month. I've heard different dates, but within the next, 2 or 3 weeks, the actual official information will be coming out to you. Again, it can be returned in 1 of 3 ways. Hopefully on the internet, number 2 through an 800 number or a toll-free number, and the third, obviously, we can still do it on the paper information and send it back. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago. We will now be traveling out to areas that are low response traditionally, and we'll be setting up areas over the next, until the end of July, for people to come to us. Even without their forms, we can help them do it. We'll be setting up centers, very much like we did with recruiting, except that we'll be there to service and help them fill out their census information. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of disinformation out there, and I think you all have my telephone number. I'll be glad to kind of help any way I can. Also, if you want to report it, my best suggestion is to go to 2020census.gov. I'm sure there's an opportunity. If you see something that you see is absolutely fictitious, please let them know where you saw it and what it's coming. I think what Make has is on social media. Okay, I got to go quickly because I got a second subject for tonight. I want to just touch base on a personal note what Earl talked about earlier tonight. In August of 17, the 1st of August, we moved here from California. Previously lived in North Carolina for 22 years. December 21st of 18, we took 2 of our grandchildren who are now part of the Brooklyn High School system. When my wife went to sign them up, we automatically assumed, since the now 15-year-old was highly functionally autistic child, there wasn't going to be the facilities here to have her go through the educational program here. We thought we were going to have to find someplace else, as it was in North Carolina. North Carolina takes money for these special programs and doesn't spend it for anything. All they do is turn everybody down, let them sue for that money, and then once they get that money, they take them to a private educational area. It's been a tremendous opportunity for my grandchildren. The oldest one will be graduating this May. But the 15-year-old is just doing extremely well. She's out of all special classes coming this next semester. She's an AB student, and it's absolutely because of the care, the love, and the support that the educational program here in Brooklyn is. I don't want to start naming names because I'll forget names and I won't get, it's just a tremendous opportunity. So yes, Earl and I have some time behind us. We are seasoned. So it's unusual, I would think, that people who traditionally do not have grandchildren, maybe children going to school, may not be as supportive of the levy. But there's an awful lot of grandparents out there raising grandchildren. So yes, please get behind it. I think it was Proposition 25, is that what we're calling it? Yeah, it's a California thing. We definitely need to vote for it again. I think I made it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Mr. Ring. Anyone else? Okay, at this time we'll move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin with the Finance Committee. We did meet this evening at 6:15 to discuss the following. Council's been notified of 2 grants that were awarded to the city. The first of which is a $750 grant from the County Solid Waste District. And this will go to fund our annual Shred Day on April 18th at the Recreation Center. The hours will be from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. so you can bring your documents in to be shredded. They can be shredded right there on site, again between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. The second is an award of a PEP grant for traffic vests, and this will be used for the police department. And this award is of $1,000 from our city insurance company, and this will be used to purchase school guard and police vests for traffic there for the police department. Ordinance 2020-11 and 2020-12 are sister ordinances. The first of which is providing for the issuance and sale of a bond, or excuse me, a note for the Road on Road and Road on Alley project for $1,130,000. 2020-12 is an issuance of a note for $2.1 million, and this is for the was for the construction of American Road. And both these debts will be paid down at 20% per year, so they'll be paid off in 5 years, as was previously discussed at the last meeting, and also last year as we paid these down. Ordinance 2020-14. This is amending various sections of the administrative code to maintain employee provisions in accordance with city policy and procedures manual. This is some housekeeping items that for in-house, for the internal policies and procedures manual for non-bargaining employees. Or that'll be on second reading tonight. And then new is ordinance 2020-15. Every 5 years, we have to pass an ordinance that designates the depositors for the active accounts here in the city of Brooklyn. And the city will continue using KeyBank, PNC Bank, Charter One, Dollar Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Huntington National, and US Bank as depositors for the active funds of the city. And the Finance Committee does meet at 6:15. Prior to all council meetings, you are welcome to attend. At this time, we'll move on with the next report, and that comes from our rec board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. Brooklyn Recreation Center is partnered with Jumpstart Sports to offer T-ball ages 3 to 4 and rookie coach pitch baseball ages 5 to 6 for the summer 2020. This program teaches basic instruction on hitting, fielding, and base running. Registration is March 1st through June 1st. Fee $55, open to residents and non-residents. To register, go to jumpstartsports.com or contact the rec center at 216-351-5334. Brooklyn Youth Baseball and Softball Leagues for players ages 6 through 8. Age as of May 1st, 2020. Registration March 1st through April 30th. Residents $55, non-residents $65. Coach pitch baseball will be an in-house league for players 6 to 8. All games and practices held at Brooklyn Recreation Center fields. Coach pitch softball will participate with teams from North Olmsted, Fairview Park, practices in Brooklyn, games to be played at home and away sites. Player pitch baseball and softball leagues for ages 8 through 18, age as of May 1st, 2020. Registration March 1st through March 31st. Residents $70, non-residents $80. Teams will travel for games in communities such as Strongsville, North Olmsted, Middleburg Heights, Olmsted Falls, and North Ridgeville. Practices held at Brooklyn Fields. Registration for all programs at brc.activityreg.com or at the Rec Center. The next Recreation Board meeting will be held on March 16th in the Rec Center meeting room at 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Domestic Abuse Commission, Councilman Ryan Shaki.
Thank you. Next week, the Commission will be meeting on Monday, March 16th at 6 o'clock at the Duncan in Ridge Park Square. This month's guest speaker is Professor Joseph Mead from CSU regarding nuisance laws and how they relate to domestic violence. In recognition of Teen Dating Awareness Month, which was February, the Commission had decided to ask retail establishments where teens in our city work, to put our healthy teen relationship posters on the employee board. Thank you first and foremost to my intern Lauren for approaching these retail establishments and asking them to take and hang a flyer. Also, thank you to those who have agreed so far, which include Raising Cane's, Sheetz, Texas Roadhouse, Mark's, Penn Station, Five Below, and Panera. Also next week, Wednesday, Forbes House will be speaking at Brooklyn High School to students about healthy teenage relationships, followed by a poster making contest by the students to hang in the halls. February was Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, but we shouldn't use that one single month to focus on this topic. Domestic violence is a cycle, and what kids see at home, often they think it is normal. Talking about relationships lets kids know when they first start dating what makes a healthy relationship, and is just one way we can work to end the cycle of domestic abuse. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Board of Zoning Appeals, Commissioner Colsar.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. There will be a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting this month on the 19th at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Conference Room. We'll be hearing a request from Nathan J. Starr for a 2-foot variance to the required 3-foot side yard setback for an air conditioning unit at 4856 Summer Lane. Also, another report from our annual meeting of the Community Reinvestment Council that happened this evening at 5:30 here in the conference room. This is the council that approves our community reinvestment area abatements, which are for projects that homeowners had done that are going to increase the valuations of their homes. So they can get a 5-year abatement by filling out the application and sending it in to us. And we had 8 eligible projects this year. 6 of them received and made application for that abatement. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Planning Commission. Councilwoman Grodick.
Thank you. First, I'd like to announce that the Planning Commission meetings will be changing beginning in April. The meetings will be the first Wednesday of the month, beginning April 1st. They still will be at 6 p.m. and still here at the conference room. On last week's agenda, there were several items, and I'm just going to run through them quickly. First, an applicant withdrew their request. Digital image signs withdrew their request for an illuminated wall sign for Mini Miracles. There was a request from Premier Brooklyn LLC for site approval for Ruan. That was deferred for another month. And these following requests were approved. So I think I have 7 here that were approved. A request from Sprint for a wireless telecommunication facility co-location for Sprint at 0 Memphis Avenue. A request for blink signs for a wall sign for National Safety Apparel at 1 American Road. A request from Brilliant Electric Sign for a freestanding tenant sign for Ridge Park Professional Building at 7575 North Clift. A request for Sikona Electric Sign and Company for a sign package for University Hospital Brooklyn at 4370 Ridge Road. A request from Kimberly Horn and Associates for a final site approval for a Starbucks drive-through at 10330 Cascade Crossing. A request for advanced illumination installation and sign for a sign package at Starbucks drive-through at the same address. And a request from Premier Brooklyn LLC for a lot consolidation at 4650 Tiedemann Road. All of those were approved. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is our school board liaison, Councilwoman Balbier.
Thank you. The school board meeting was predominantly an executive session, but some things that were mentioned was the musical Newsy that is opening this week. There are over 150 students involved. The performances are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. and Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Tickets are $10. That's a steal. Also, Brooklyn High School was on Fox 8 News Cool School of the Week last week. The camera crew came in and filmed a segment that aired on the news on Thursday the 5th. The next school board meeting is March 18th in the Media Center at 6 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. The committee of the whole met following our finance committee meeting this evening, and I'll just go over the items that we covered that were not covered in the finance committee. Ordinance 2020-7 is up for third reading adoption. This is amending various sections of the property maintenance and rental licensing code, and this is in regards to transient rentals. We have not come to a conclusion on this piece of legislation, so I'm going to make a motion that this be tabled this evening. Mr. Butler is currently working on 2 other pieces of legislation regarding this, and we will discuss those in a future public safety meeting. And then the other item was Ordinance 2020-13, enacting Chapter 731 of the Codified Ordinances of Brooklyn. And this deals with the donation boxes that you see sitting around the city. This will require permitting and some other items for those, and that's on second reading. And then one other item that the mayor mentioned, Swenson's is no longer coming to Brooklyn. They pulled out of at the location that was currently being proposed at the corner of Bidoff and Ridge. And so they, at least as it stands right now, Swenson's is not coming to Brooklyn. The committee of the whole meets prior to every council meeting, immediately following the finance committee meeting, which starts at 6:15. All are welcome to attend. At this time now, we'll move on with reports of council. We'll begin this evening with Mr. Sellers.
Thank you. As you've heard before, there is a school renewal levy coming up on March 17th. Please vote for it if you can afford so. It's a renewal, it's not new taxes. I know people's financial situations change, but if you can support it, please do support it. On Friday, February 28th, Mr. Raguse, our finance director, and I met with First Energy and also with Carrie Wilson from Real Term Energy. We're still looking into the conversion of existing street lights to LED street lights, which have not been done. First Energy has a conversion program where they're willing to do 25,000 lights this year. No other city has come up and said they are interested in it at this point. First Energy came up with some numbers and ideas. Real Term actually came to the table first with ideas, and the potential savings per year is around $68,000 per year. From Real Term, First Energy has a significantly different savings factor. So we're trying to get these numbers clarified before we actually come to council and try to come up with some proposal. There's also an idea of trying to do an audit of actually the fixtures, determine that we have the proper wattage, so you have the roads that are properly covered and light, so they're not overlit or underlit. Because roads, when they were initially lights were put out, might have been okay, but they might have gone from two lanes like Tiedemann to 4 or 5. Just a variety of factors going on. So we're still working on that, and once we have some more actually concrete, definite things to talk about, we'll present it to council. This past Wednesday, on March 4th, I attended a Waste in Place Train to Trainer workshop offered by Keep America Beautiful and Keep Ohio Beautiful. Day was spent on lesson plans, which can be used in schools and also for groups. Through Jack Abruzzi, I'm in contact with Christina Haas and Alex Urban, who will be working on the summer camp for Brooklyn. We will discuss as how to implement some of the lessons about littering and beautification to students this summer. Also, Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, as an affiliate of Keep America Beautiful, will have a kickoff cleanup campaign on June 6th. It's going to be at the Pavilion in Memorial Park. It's going to start at 9 a.m. We're going to do this in conjunction with Big Creek Connects when they do their annual cleanup behind the fire station. We'll have some more information coming out on that through social media and through print. And this is just the start of a variety of cleanups, a number of them which were organized last year by Councilwoman Shockey, and we'll be continuing this year for it. So there'll be more information coming out to that, and you can sign up for these things. And one final thing, we talked a little bit about with Mrs. Grodig's class and the read days, going over to the schools, reading books to children. One of the things with all this other stuff that's nice is her class actually gave me thank you cards, which kind of puts all of this into a different perspective. So that's a nice thing. So please support the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Next up, Mrs. Pucci.
Good evening. I just have two brief things I'd like to talk about tonight. For months now, you've been hearing a lot about the census, and I hope that people have come to understand how critical it is to our community. One of the original intent of the census, excuse me, was to determine how many representatives each state would get in the House of Representatives. And this year, Ohio is in jeopardy of losing one of our House members based on population. So it is, critical for that purpose also that every single person be counted. There's about $675 billion in federal aid that gets distributed based on the census for schools, roads, hospitals. Businesses decide where to build stores, factories, and warehouses based on census numbers. And when nonprofits apply for funding from the federal government, they're required to use census data to support what they're asking for in dollar amounts. Just a few of the critical programs in Cuyahoga County that rely on the census: Medicaid, the SNAP program, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, Medicare Part B, special education grants, the National School Lunch Program, Head Start, Early Head Start, foster care, and health programs such as for the community, migrant, homeless, and public housing. So please, let's try and make sure every single person in Brooklyn gets counted. Because of our heightened sense of skepticism, as was mentioned, potential scams, we do have to be careful that it's the actual census that we're responding to. But I know that some people are concerned about sharing information, whether it's private or not. It is a federal law that it has to be kept confidential. It is not released to anyone. It's only used for statistical purposes, and they cannot even release it to law enforcement. And just a little bit of trivia on the census, the very first census was in 1790, and the population of our country at that point was 3.9 million. Issue 25 is critical to our schools. It's a renewal. It's not an increase. This is the last levy in a series, and if this renewal does pass, the schools have made a commitment that they do not anticipate having anything else on the ballot until at least November of 2022. Voters will recognize that we've had a series of levies because there were some renewals that were really all bunched together. So this is the last one in the series, and it's important that we support it. Election Day is next Tuesday, March 17th, and you can vote early, either in person or by mail or on Election Day. And for those who celebrate, a happy St. Patrick's Day next week. Thank you.
Mrs. Bellbeer.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to mention too much about the levy. All I'm going to say is I'm voting for it. So, and I wish you do too. I'd like to mention one of our local churches here in Brooklyn. They've been recognized in a magazine that if you're a registered Catholic, you get it to your home every month. It's called the Northeast Ohio Catholic Magazine. And St. Thomas More has been mentioned in it as a wonderful place to worship. It's very warm, very welcoming. They mention a wonderful little family that's new to the church and to the school and how much they love it. So if you get a chance, please take a minute and read it. It's very, very nice, and it's nice that it's a church in our city, Brooklyn. Everybody's talking about the coronavirus. Sometimes I'm sitting on pins and needles. I have a couple trips planned. I don't know, should I cancel, should I go? My husband's a little elderly. All these things are coming up with everybody. Well, I talked to our wonderful fire chief. He eased my mind on a few things, and I think he's probably going to talk a little bit later about it. But I don't know if it's the media hype or if it's really true. But I do know that I am washing my hands more than ever. Not only because I have a business where you're with foods always, but I am washing it, and I do get a little bit frightened when I go to church and the priest there says, please sit further away. We're not going to do the sign of peace. We're not going to have wine at church. All the baptismal founts, the holy water founts are empty. Things like that. That kind of does scare me. So everybody is taking all kinds of precautions. And like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but I did feel a lot better after talking with our fire chief. But if those people that are afraid of the hand sanitizers that are coming off the shelves in stores, you can look online. I did look online on how to do it. You can make your own. It'd probably be a lot cheaper and just probably quite as effective. I know it's at least 70% alcohol. And that pretty much completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Congratulations to the students and staff at Brooklyn High School for being selected Fox 8 Cool School of the Week. The highlights included the building's music department, a high school journalism class in Hurricane Cafe that aired on Fox 8 News in the morning on March 5th. Great job, everyone. Also this week, Brooklyn's high school spring musical Newsies will take place in the auditorium with performances on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And that concludes my report. Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you. Before we heard this afternoon that the coronavirus showed up in Cuyahoga County, I was actually planning on telling a little story that happened in my house over the last 24 hours as just an example of how this is bringing all illnesses more to our forefront. And I'm hoping that you aren't like me and you're a little bit more prepared. My husband came down with the stomach virus quite suddenly last night, and I found myself at Giant Eagle at about 6:45 a.m. this morning getting sports drinks and popsicles and some cans of soup, and I'm even embarrassed to say a thermometer. If you're like me, it's just my husband and I, our kids are long gone, and we're not as worried, nor are we as prepared. So take this time to make sure that you are stocked up in your house in case you find yourself or someone in your house suddenly ill, so that you're not at Giant Eagle at 6:45 a.m. standing in line like I was. We've talked a lot about voting the last several meetings, and I just wanted to remind people that although it is a primary season, if you consider yourself an independent or a nonpartisan or prefer just not to vote for the candidates, you are able to request an issue ballot only. And we have two very important issues. One that you hear a lot about, that's issue 25 for our schools, but we also have issue 33, which is the Cuyahoga County health issue. It is a slight increase, it's a replacement and an increase, but if you are someone who chooses not to vote for candidates this primary season, please remember you can ask for an issue-only ballot. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ranchaki.
Thank you. International Women's Day was celebrated around the world yesterday, March 8th. It is a global day that celebrates social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. International Women's Day started in the early 1900s, with the United States first observing this day in 1909. Great strides have been made in our home country regarding women's rights and accomplishments, but we still have work to do to reach equality. Last week, I attended the public officials breakfast at the Legal Aid Society that featured their keynote speaker, U.S. Senator Rob Portman. Senator Portman discussed S.3030, which is a bipartisan bill related to eviction prevention. Titled Eviction Crisis Act of 2019, this bill can bring significant changes to families who face eviction. The legal aid, prior to Senator Portman's remarks, talked about the lack of representation that a majority of these families face when in court, and just how short, most being under 2 minutes, most of these cases last in the courtroom before a family is evicted from their home. For me, this event and legislation are important in my role as Fair Housing Rep on Council, as well as my work on the Domestic Abuse Commission, as domestic abuse is one of the leading causes of homelessness. And finally, as we've all heard, 1 week from tomorrow is Election Day in Ohio. Please be sure to cast your vote, whether it's early, in person, by mail, or on Election Day. And please vote yes on issue 25. And that ends my report.
Thank you. As I mentioned several times up here already, it seems like people are going a little crazy due to this coronavirus, and now that it's 3 people have tested positively for it in Cuyahoga County. It seems to be exacerbated. The actual name for it is COVID-19. Coronaviruses really aren't new. This is just a new strand of it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a first responder, and neither are most of the people that are on TV that are pushing a lot of this panic that has seemed to set in. So I decided to do my own research on this and speak with people and read from people who know what they're talking about. According to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, the best advice to give for this virus is the exact same advice that is given for most other communicable diseases. Wash your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hands. If you're sick, stay home. Avoid contact with people who are sick. Monitor your symptoms. If you are sick and need to see a doctor, make sure you call ahead first. And a new one for this one that's been pushed a little bit more is to make sure that you wash surfaces that are touched often, as this particular virus can stay alive on hard surfaces longer than other communicable diseases like the flu. The bottom line is to exercise proper hygiene. While all these things are important, most of all, don't panic. This virus is a fast-moving one. Actually, when I wrote this, I said it hadn't even reached Ohio yet, and that's changed even quickly since I've written this. This should be taken seriously. There's no question about it, but it seems that many Americans seem to be panicking. Thus far in America, there have been 22 people that have been killed from this virus. Now, one death is tragic. There's no question about that. But to put it into perspective, the CDC's website today said that during this flu season, October 1, 2019 through February 29, 2020, there's been somewhere between 20,000 and 52,000 Americans that have died because of the flu. And we don't really hear anything about that on the news. COVID-19, like most respiratory illnesses, affect older residents and those with underlying health issues more than harshly than others. Again, the virus should be taken seriously, and being prepared, as Mrs. Grote just mentioned, is a good thing. However, panicking has never solved anything, and it certainly is not going to solve this issue. And now that Ohioans have come in contact with this illness, just like many have come in contact with the flu, it is also likely that less than 1% of those who contact the illness will perish as a result. That is not my words. That is taken from two different journals. One, the New England Journal of Medicine, another, the Cato Institute. The numbers that have been reported out there right now are much higher than that. And the reason for that is because there are still many diagnoses that have not taken place yet. That number is very likely to fall somewhere between 0.5 and 1%. That is higher than the flu. The flu is about 0.1%, but it's certainly not at the 3.5%. I've even heard as high as 7% of the kill rate of this. So here's the bottom line. Again, as Mrs. Grote mentioned, be prepared. Practice proper hygiene. Stay home if you're sick or vulnerable, and mostly don't panic. If you have any questions, the Ohio Department of Health has opened up a call center to answer those questions. The call center is open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and that number is 1-833-4-ASK-ODH or 1-833-427-5634. Chief Paul gave us a very good explanation and a very good overview of this in the Committee of the Whole, and I've asked him to do the same, and he will do that when he gives the director's reports here shortly. Following our meeting on February the 10th, we had a lengthy discussion regarding a potential dog park in Brooklyn. One of the proposed locations was in Marquardt Park, where the now abandoned baseball diamond is located. Mr. Abruzzi provided a sketch of the location, how it could potentially look. I am in favor of continuing to explore this location as well as any other potential locations for this park. I frequent that park quite often. It is already used extensively, not so much in the last couple months, but when the weather's nicer for people who are walking their dogs through the trails and so on. And adding this park could further enhance that experience without interfering much with those who live in the immediate areas. I know there are some that have expressed concern with this, and that may be enough to overthrow this, but right now I think it's a good idea that we continue moving forward. If other council members or residents have another thought or idea of where a good place for a dog park would be, please email me, and I'll be happy to look at that location. The residents that I've spoken with are very much in favor and support this idea. In the past, I think Mrs. Pucci mentioned at the last meeting, the city has not had the funds to be able to pay for this, a park such as this. However, that's different now. That's changed. The city's doing well financially, and we should be able to move forward with something like this if we can find the proper location. Right, no one's in a hurry to get this done. We're not rushing the process. However, I do anticipate continuing pushing forward to see if this gets accomplished. I spoke with Mr. Abruzzi again this evening prior to our finance meeting. When the weather breaks, he's going to be visiting several dog parks in surrounding communities to garner some ideas, to get some questions answered. There are always negatives to things like this, but it seems that the positives far outweigh them. So again, if any member of the community or any member of council has another idea of a viable location, I would ask that you please feel free to communicate those with me. Again, nothing's been finalized or even close to that, but I do hope to plan moving forward ahead with this. Since a lot of discussion has talked about the schools, I do want to give an update on Ohio House Bill 504. This is the legislation that our Representative Bride Sweeney has introduced in the Ohio House. This would give the same amount of funds or provide the same amount of funds to the city of Brooklyn as the charter schools are receiving per student. And that would increase ours, I think it's from right around $900 per year to up over $1,300 per year. Currently, the bill was sent to committee and then they all went on break. And so they're adjourned until after the election is over. So I do anticipate hearing about when a hearing will be set, hopefully sometime around the week of the 23rd. And again, it's Columbus, so it could be longer than that. This legislation, of course, is not the end-all be-all for solving the financial problems in the school. The main problem is the formula, the way that the district is receiving funding from the state. It's way out of whack. I've done extensive research through the Ohio Department of Education, through a very lengthy Excel spreadsheet explaining how it works, and Brooklyn is getting hosed, for lack of a better term, when it comes to that funding. That needs to be changed. The Cupp-Patterson bill is in the process, but it's been around for a long, long time with very little movement, unfortunately. So my goal for this House Bill 504 obviously is to get it passed, but more than that is to kind of shine the light on the fact that the funding is unfair for the city of Brooklyn. It's not even close. When I saw these numbers, it was actually astonishing at how unfair it was. And so I hope that through these hearings that we can shed more of a light on this to hopefully get some of these legislators to move and to get this Cupp-Patterson bill passed, or at least something like that. I have been in contact with Dr. Glykoff. We've shared several emails on a game plan that we can come up with to actually send people down to Columbus when this comes to a hearing so that we can have our voices heard at the State House about this piece of legislation, as well as how the funding is totally unfair. And I don't like that term fair, because my dad used to say life's not fair. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, fairness really is the key here. It's completely out of whack. It's amazing to me how bad it is. So hopefully we'll be able to see some work on that through House Bill 504, as well as I think it's House Bill 305, which is the Cupp-Patterson bill. And that's all I have for this evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you. I have two quick things. A lot of things have already been covered, and I know Chief Paul will give a update or a discussion on the coronavirus. But one, I wanted to welcome Ross Dress for Less. They officially opened this past Saturday. It's nice to see a long vacant space in Ridge Park Square filled. So welcome to our community. And then Bulldog Ice Cream will have a grand opening on March 21st at noon. It's a Saturday. I know that they're already open, but come on out and support our local businesses. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll move on with director's reports. We begin this evening with our building commissioner, Mr. Colsar.
Thank you. We're receiving applications currently for the exterior property maintenance grant. That started at the beginning of this month and it continues through the end of June. And I just wanted to remind the residents that we're not going to be able to process applications that are incomplete. A couple of them that we've received so far have not filled it out completely, provided all the information that's necessary. One key thing is that all adults that live in the home need to provide their financials, so keep that in mind. And if you have any questions while you're filling this out, please contact Dawn Neal, and she can help you with that. But we won't be returning any applications that we do get that are incomplete, so just want everybody to be aware to make sure that they fill them out completely and provide all the information so we can get the monies needed for your special projects. And if you ever have any other questions regarding it, always feel free to give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colsar. Next up, Chief Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. So I just want to let you folks know that the city's taken a proactive stance on COVID-19. Myself, the mayor's office, and Chief Milkey, we sat in a conference call with other mayors and folks from the Board of Health. It was a good conference call. The mayors had a lot of questions on guidance to what to tell their residents, and we are all working on getting that out to you as soon as possible. I went to a meeting today, and unfortunately the speaker was going to be Terry Allen of the Board of Health, as well as Dr. Tom Collins from Metro Health Hospital. They had that 3 o'clock press release, so they did not make it. So it sounds like there's going to be a conference call Wednesday sometime. We'll learn a little bit more about what happened. At the time of the meeting today, there were no cases found to be in the state of Ohio. And during that meeting, obviously, it had been reported that 3 cases have been reported from Collier County. Those folks, it looked like 2 of them had visited Egypt and 1 had visited Washington, D.C. at some point. Ohio was one of the last states, I believe, to get these test kits, so they're out there now. So that's kind of probably why we haven't heard too many cases. I'm sure there's going to be more. We were told on Friday to expect it coming to Ohio, and 3 days later it's here. So I would expect those numbers to go up. Like Mr. Van Kirk stated, the numbers out there mostly are affecting the folks that are elderly, maybe have some underlying health issues, as well as suppressed immune systems. Okay, so those are the folks that are getting beat up with this. It sounds like the young folks are able to fight it off. And listen, there's going to be a lot of people out there, like Mr. Van Kirk said, that are going to get the virus and not have the severe symptoms and probably not even go to the doctor to even be tested for it. So as more comes out, we'll get it out to you. The mayor's office has been proactive. The hospital, the UH hospital put a interim guidance out for its fire departments. So we kind of know what we need to be prepared for on the fire department side as well as letting them know on the hospital side. I spoke to Nick DeSico, who is in charge of Chagrin Valley Dispatch Center, and they've been asking these questions that we need to ask folks for the last month or so, okay? The only thing that's changed is the list of countries that people have visited has kind of expanded, okay? If you have any questions, the cdc.gov is a great website. If you're traveling and you have questions, you can pretty much get anything answered at cdc.gov. That's pretty much all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. At this time, we'll move on with our agenda. We have two notifications this evening, the first of which is a notification of a $750 grant from the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. And again, this is for the Shred Day at the Recreation Center. I mentioned the dates earlier, but it's April the 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so we thank the Solid Waste District for that. The other is an award of $1,000 from PEP, the Public Entities Pool of Ohio, which is our insurance here. And this is a grant for a traffic vest for the police department. And again, we thank our insurance company for that as well. The first item on the agenda is ordinance 2020-7, amending various sections of property maintenance and rental licensing code to provide for the regulation transient rentals. And I'm going to make a motion that we table this ordinance.
Second.
To table, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-11, providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $1,130,000 of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of reconstructing road-on road and road-on alley and declaring an emergency. And unfortunately, I have to read the fiscal officer certificate. It's the law, so please bear with me. To the Council of the City of Brooklyn, Ohio, a fiscal officer of the City of Brooklyn, I certify in connection with your proposed issue of not to exceed $1,130,000 of notes to be issued in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of, forgive me, I had the wrong one up, to pay costs of reconstructing road-on road and road-on alley, that the estimated life or period of usefulness of the improvement is at least 5 years. The estimated maximum maturity of the bonds calculated in accordance with section 133.20 of the revised code is 20 years. If notes in anticipation of the bonds are outstanding later than the last day of December of the 5th year following the year of issuance of the original issue of the notes, the period in excess of those 5 years shall be deducted from the maximum maturity of the bonds. And number 3, the maximum maturity of the notes is June 7th, 2037, which is 20 years from June 7th, 2017, the date of issuance of the original notes issued for this purpose. And that's on second reading. Ordinance 2020-12, providing for the issuance and sale not to exceed $2.1 million of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay costs of extending American Road by constructing grading, draining, paving, constructing curbs, gutters, and driveway aprons, installing storm sewers, and making other improvements as designated by the plans approved or to be approved by council. And again, I have to read this wonderful certificate. To the Council of the City of Brooklyn, Ohio, as fiscal officer of the City of Brooklyn, I certify in connection with your proposed issue of not to exceed $2.1 million of notes, the notes to be issued in anticipation of the issuance of bonds, the bonds to pay costs of extending American Road by constructing, grading, draining, paving, constructing curbs, gutters, and driveway aprons, installing storm sewers, and making other improvements as designated in the plans approved or to be approved by council. The improvement that, number 1, the estimated life or period of usefulness of the improvement is at least 5 years. 2, the estimated maximum maturity of the bonds calculated in accordance with section 133.20 of the revised code is 20 years. If notes in anticipation of the bonds are outstanding later than the last day of December of the 5th year following the year of issuance of that original issuance of the notes, the period in excess of those 5 years shall be deducted from the maximum maturity of the bonds. And number 3, the maximum maturity of the notes is May 29th, 2039, which is 20 years from May 29th, 2019, the date of issuance of the original notes issued for this purpose. That is, both of those are signed by our finance director. On second reading this evening is ordinance 2020-13, enacting Chapter 713 of the Brooklyn Codified Ordinances, donation boxes. Also on second reading this evening is ordinance 2020-14, amending various sections of the administrative code to maintain employees' provisions in accordance with the city policy and procedures manual. And then on first reading this evening and new to our agenda is ordinance 2020-15, designating the depositories for active and interim funds of the city of Brooklyn, Ohio for the period of April 1, 2020 through March 31, 2025. And again, that is on first reading. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Is anyone on council, the mayor, or directors, anything like to add?
I just have one question to the fire chief. We have a lot of talk about this virus and how we're trying to stop it. And I've heard many things where it came from. Do we know where this came from? And wherever it came from, is there a way to contain it, stop it, or enforce something so it doesn't happen again? Do they find out where this came from?
I believe it came from Wuhan province, China, so that's where that started.
From animals? I heard bats.
I
Do
think
you have any source?
it's in animals, and at some point was transferred to a human, and now it's human to human. They're working on figuring out how to stop it in its tracks. They're working hard.
I just thought there was something that a certain animal where we can contain it or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But they're doing everything they can. I wouldn't be overly concerned. You know, like I said, go to the CDC's website if you have any questions. But it comes down to basic hygiene. Washing your hands, covering your nose and mouth.
Okay, thank you.
Those types of things.
Anyone else? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second. To adjourn, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.